right? It was cheap enough to get a new powerful tool. So we have to anyway strengthen that ability. And in doing that, we have to pay a bit more attention to research. You know, when we first started to talk about innovation, the dire academics that we used to think that we were saying, well, stop the research. And I said, no. You have to complement it and also make it meaningful. You can't go researching everything, you know, on the face of the earth. And then you have to move that to development and then to distribution, deployment. You're moving products to market, moving services to market. The focus of today's talk is economic in nature, but you could also innovate, as the next slide shows. Oh, I have the control. It's to innovate in the economic space, but you could also innovate by getting this to work. Right? Could you get it for right, innovate in all spheres, economic, ecological, social, anything that you bring anew to society, and that thing brings benefit, that's an innovation. And that's a definition that came to us by economist called Rothbard many years ago. I've held on to it because I find it is just right. We tend to overuse the word, but that is what it is. It's new, it's novel, okay, and it brings benefit. And the benefit could be just selling one, if it's a, say like that, right? I covered the first ME. The second one is, it does fuel the social ecological dimension. You need money. These things are not independent. Wealth generation, which almost sustainable development, you can't do it without fueling the tank, right? You need money to get it done. Well, that's the economic sphere. And the last point, a lot of people, if you could put it up, I'll read it for you. This is working now. Do I get extra 2 minutes for this? Right, I'll read it for you. Commercializing an invention takes higher priority over patenting it. People run down patents like crazy, and the lawyers are so happy to take their money, right? And I can tell a story about that one too, but in the end, what you're getting it for, it's to commercialize it. And the patenting system was created exactly for that. If you go back to it, novelty, it must bring benefit and it must be implementable. That's the criteria right there, okay? That next one, you can click on and there's another page. There you go, right? Next page, please. Next slide. Now, innovation can occur individually and at the corporate level. And it's glad that Diane is here because she can speak a little bit to that. But I'm really about a culture of innovation that sparks new things happening. And that process really develops your citizens into being very creative. You could expand the whole thing. There are 5 bullets. The regional economy is vulnerable because it's so reliant, as Karen said, on imported technology and is dominated by the large-scale industries, democratize the economy. So we need to become more aggressively, innovatively, my centers we know are going, have a strong innovative culture, right? And that will empower your companies to become more competitive and take on the world in a much better way. Point 5 at the bottom, please go to there. There you go. Right. So that enables a shift in regional economies to one that's not unlike, this is the one where it's kind of democratized in German Mittelstand. And some of you would have heard of it. I know you mentioned it and so on. I know there are some problems and so on, but it's still the best way to go. There's network of SMEs, and some of them have grown, develop kind of amorphously. Family companies and all that. Go to the next slide and explain it. Yeah. There you go. I'll click once again. I think they could read fast, so there you go. Right. Not full clicks. Right. So 3 layers, all of them earning like about roughly 30% of the foreign exchange in the country. Large, medium-sized, and SMEs. The Mittelstand form the SMEs. I mean, all universities have grown up to support them. That's how yes, they have met them. Right. They cater for 60% of the workforce employment. 50%, 52% of economic output, and 54% launched. They launched 54% new innovations. This was about 5 years ago. Right here, Costa Rica has similar model, and I think theirs was more deliberate. Right? And tell me about Costa Rica. Next part slide. Every year we see graduates leaving say, I can't get a job in my field. Well, right, so I know me tell them go create your own job. That's my answer. I really can't help you otherwise. So I got my grades, which is like venting we call it. But create your job. So the vision we have, and we started at UWI, is to create a swarm of SMEs, thinking big, swarm of SMEs piloted by those graduates, right? Driven by, largely, not all the way, by new innovations. That's a double C. By innovations, right? And the innovations make those companies automatically competitive for the time for which their patents are alive. That's the idea, right? Go do it. And then if you fail, go and do it again. That's how it works, okay? Next one. So, sorry, fine print. So I listed some of the innovations, and it came, I decided to do this some time ago. A list of a few innovations that came out from the Caribbean. And I mean, among them are beverages like chocolate milk, but this was like American stuff and Europeans coming in and so on. But it came from the Caribbean, pretty standard. So it's normally taken for granted that Jamaica is where chocolate milk came to be. We know about the bitters. The shoe lasting machine is interesting one that came out of Suriname, right? Mother was a slave, father was a German. And this young guy came up with the machine in Suriname, then moved to the States and back with it became big. That's how we got these today, all right? Steel pan, well, we know what that one. Mudslide, right? Cayman Islands. Nobody, by the way, filed patents for that, but people benefited, not so, right? Search engine, Alan and Taj from Barbados. Didn't file, right? He developed it in Canada, where he was studying computer engineering. The chubby button is one of the best examples locally. People have forgotten about it. Came about in 1993, and boy, did it sell. Yeah. Asphalt byproducts and sealants, our best kept secret at UWI. Sitting down there for about 15 years. We finally got it up and going, and they've been quietly selling. Sorry, I didn't say that right. Companies been formed just to be properly capitalized and doing quite well against the competition. The Chipan, Kara spoke about that, and I'm not going to talk about that there, right? Because of our Instrument 5, that was my DJ name, would you believe, before we came. That one, we are working to get it out, so it has not, all you've seen on there is just beta testing products, people looking at it and so on. You can see it on YouTube and whatnot. 300 million views on a Nicki Minaj video. We got one. That's marketed for you, right? But not so. Innovate concrete blocks, not much heard of in the construction sector. Hawkeye cardiac surgical simulator, done in Jamaica, sold to a couple of universities in the States for training people on heart surgery. So they innovated and so, yeah. Antimicrobial agents, we have pharmaceutical companies coming to mine the microbes in the carne swamp, but our guys decided to go and do it, and they came up with a couple of concoctions, I call them, for fighting all kinds of diseases and so on. And by if you'll see the latest one, that's Legina Henry, out of Barbados, a Trinidadian, MIT graduate, and she already, and she in fact came up with this. Next slide. Next slide. No, you only 2 minutes there because. Right, here we go. So this is what roughly people will detail it, what the structure of a well-developed nation is when it comes to harnessing its innovations. At the top left, you have someone coming up tonight. This is the top of the pipe, all right? And then it works down through a series of processes. We have a cutting edge research, so people finding out maybe how atoms work or something, I don't know, right? That's the high theory. But out of it comes stuff that people say, oh wait, I could use this, and a new product or process comes with it. Usually it's more than one. Now, in between, new knowledge is being created, and in some cases, it's also being patented. So it's a whole cascade that occurs. You have the development. If it decides to go to market, well, you have to shape it to go to the market. All the market stuff comes in and say, no, you have to look that way, and so on. And all the way down the bottom layer, somebody makes money from it. The difference between them and us is that some of those proceeds go back to fund the higher chain, the upper parts of the chain. They also use knowledge that exists globally, That's all the licensed papers that the university, Keith, our academics like to write, right? And they will be almost for free, right? After trying to legal spend money on them. That's all, right? So they tap into that, right? I had a friend at Hughes Aerospace that did exactly, that was his job. He supported, asked me to come and help them, right? Tap it into that. That's what they do. Nothing wrong with that, that's knowledge, right? But your risk goes up as you go up the chain, so does your innovativeness, right? And of course you have to invest. Now, next slide. If you look at typical third world scenario, by the way, that's like 4% GDP being spent, the US spends 3.5%. This slide was done some time ago, so trying to do 1.04%, that's what it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and you see that the chain is kind of messed up, right? So all the work that's done at the universities feeds the international store of knowledge. See it? And that knowledge is tapped down at the lower end, of course more broadly, in the production sector. So there's some work going on there. But the key thing on the left-hand side is that the funding for the higher level processes is, well, it's there, but it's just not enough. 0.04% of GDP. Next slide before she runs. Let's see. Right? Let's keep clicking until you want to stop. All right. So some years ago, Larry King, Sinclair King, myself worked together, and there's one more click on there. To come up with this concept of one more again, of the innovation diamond. The innovation diamond puts together the various elements that will drive a national innovation system. Right? Financial aspect at the very top. On the left is the centers of excellence where the research is being generated. Now, this is a lot of exchanges going on. So even products in the market benefiting from this improvement in products, improvement in processes. Test market is especially a brand new product. You want to test it out before getting feedback. That's where we are with the percussive harmonic instrument, and then move on from there. And of course, you have to have your commercial production, and that's all coordinated by a central agency. That's the key concept. All right. So that's what an NIS theoretically is supposed to do. Next slide, please. Right. So the GII rankings, they put out every year. This is from the 2023 rankings, and I think you mentioned this at a meeting recently. Trinidad is 102 out of 132, bottom 3, when it comes to innovation. Now, I wouldn't say that they're doing 100% good measurement. You know how this thing goes, right? They ask you for information, whatever information you provide, that's what drives the data. The thing is that the data has been pretty consistent over the years. Our gross spending on R&D has improved, actually. It's now 0.1% of GDP. And I mean, when you look at all those products, what was it I listed? About 10 or so, over 600 years in the Caribbean, you can see why this is. But at the same time, Jamaica sits at 78 out of 132. Maybe they provided better information, I don't know, right? They didn't report on their gross spend either, right? By the way, we used to call them Jamaicans, right? They're not easy at all. But, but interestingly, good. Yeah, I'm almost done. Second to last slide. The report listed Jamaica among 21 quote-unquote innovation performers relative to the economic development. They're punching above their weight. That's what the report said. And that's for the third year in a row. Third year in a row. You're performing beyond expectations. The only other Latin American and Caribbean country in that is Brazil. In that group. Says something, right? But we have the inventions on here, right? And of course, just for reference, the USA sits at 3.5%, right? Out of the GDP. Interestingly enough, one of the biggest spends was 2009 under Obama. Was it the Recovery Act? I think they spent like 87 billion. It sounds low. Billion. Yeah, it sounded wow. Yeah. And that was driven by a report that came out from a study that was done on the US in the early half of the century. Why it is there was a sudden surge in productivity led to the slow law, residual, which basically says it's not just investment in capital that pushes the industry, it's also investment in innovation, creating new products and new ideas and so on. Okay. So next slide. The quick thing on what we were doing at uni, and it's still there, so I'm glad to see that it's now taking off again. We created several companies. One of them is a holding companies for companies. One company, Uni Ventures Limited. We were trying to create the NIS at uni. Figured if the nation will do it, let's do it and then it will grow. That was the idea. Okay. So there are 3 companies, bona fide production companies that should be on it. And not too sure exactly where it is, but I know that it is still there. So I guess comes through the pipeline. And then somebody looks and says, no, you want to scrap, go back to the drawing board. Oh no, this looks like it has good potential. It will go to UV Ventures. And we pull in all the investors. Now we know academics not good at, doing this thing. Who's that yet? Okay, we know they're not good at doing this. So private sector interested, you come on board. You bring your expertise, bring your money, right, as well, and we move it forward. So that was UV Ventures Limited. And next slide, this is the ultimate. So what do we do? There's a role for these three parts of what people call the helix, the triple helix: government, academia, and the private sector. Government needs to work to strengthen that iron. It's need to move it. It started already, and I'm seeing incremental adjustment. Was $10 million that was put into a fund. From the EU and through Kerry. I do believe Kerry needs to be the cornerstone for this. Academia needs to break its hold on pure research. I got a lot of my parents coming through saying, "Oh, we only supposed to research and teaching." Who pays for that? All right. So it needs to break that, and let us happen and focus more on research, complementing innovation and entrepreneurship. All right. And the private sector, I think, needs to also step up to the plate, and I'm seeing it happening. I see the Trust as a entrepreneurship program that actually has funded several startups. But actually, much more needs to be done. I mentioned, sorry, it sounds like I'm making a pitch, Keith, the course still tied to uni. But there are three business startups there, just waiting for funding, right? We see it limited, asphalt products, real good sealants, the chocolate factory. Chocolate is sitting around for too many years, and found a way to market it. They just started the foundation for building for that company. And Ananime Innovations Limited, which we will be selling to you for $1, right? The market effect, right? So I hope they hear me because I want to push that along, right? And the last slide. Our your lunch, right? The last slide is conclusion. Yeah. Oh, here it is, right. So, couldn't find the best way to say it, but we started on that march. A little bit late, a little bit slow, but we almost there. And success will depend on how well the government, academia, and industry work together for the benefit of the people of Trinidad.
Thank you, Professor Copeland, for leading us off this afternoon. And with that, I think that's a great starting block for me to invite our panelists up for us to continue our discussion. Right, so, Eileen, Mr. Schultz, Professor Copeland.
Yeah.
So again, thanks, Professor Copeland. So I know in your presentation you highlighted several of the challenges, right? I'm going to give an opportunity for the other panelists as well to respond maybe on some of the challenges that you see to innovation that we see currently in the marketplace.
Sure. So first and foremost, I have to commend COSTAATT and Dr. Mills for this whole idea of an innovation cafe, because you are bringing together the key players. We cannot do this by ourselves. We need to have, and I'm hoping that this is not a one. I'm hoping that this will not be a one-off, because we need to continue this dialogue so that we do not operate in silos. One of the challenges is we are operating in a silo, and it's what I call a mindset shift that we need. And from the private sector point of view, when you think about innovation, it's seen as an academic exercise. And for us at the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber, and given the economic situation in Trinidad and Tobago, innovation, we are tying innovation for your business continuity and survival. So it's more so a mindset shift, and that idea that Prof talked about it briefly, about the idea and the concept of failure. You fail, you have to get up and try again. It's a cultural shift that we need to know that failure happens. And that also, it's the idea of we are very risk averse. And again, how do we address these challenges? It's only by when we share information. We have this community of practice where we come together, we share our failures. We don't talk about our failures. So if we talk about it and then we get an idea of how we can work together, how we can enhance the failure and then grow from that, it's a stepping stone. So I think that is, for me, where I sit, that is the biggest challenge.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz? Anything to add?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, and once again, to COSTAATT for having us here today. This is appreciated. I think we should have more of these. I'm just feeding on what Bashir indicated, that culture of innovation, a culture of mindset. It really starts, culture is something that is a learned thing that starts, of course, as with children, and we go into schools and into business places and so on. And that aversion to risk, as she correctly pointed out, is something that's a learned behavior. Now, for instance, we need to sort of embed in our system, in our education system, that perception of innovation, the perception of taking risk, of new ideas coming out and so on, and moving forward even if you have failed. And an example of, for instance, at Kabiri, we have what every July, August vacation period, we have something called the Innovation Nation Program, which is for students between 10 to 18 years old. They're invited. We have different programs on coding, on business development, on climate action, and so on. This year, for July, August, we reached 3,600 students. And arising out of that, at the end of it, we have a competition where we call it power competition, where we pick the 10 best students and they then develop an app or a product or whatever to address real world applications, real world problems. And we've assisted them based on what they've learned in the program, how to think it out, how to do from what we call not just getting from an idea to prototype, but idea to prototype, meaning is it worthy, can it stand the test and scrutiny, and then to prototype and then finally to market. And it's also part of a service we offer called the Idea Advisory Service for small businesses. And coming out of that, they then present these products, these ideas, these apps in the power competition, and they get prizes and so on. And you will ask, well, where we get funding to do that for 3,600, well, private sector funding, which we have lobbied heavily for. And they have been willing participants. And next year we hope to expand the program beyond that. But this year what we did an extra step for the winners and for some of the more promising ideas. We're working to link that to private sector to commercialize some of those ideas. So right there at the beginning, at that age group, 10 to 18 or even younger, innovative thinking, resistant to worrying about failure. Failure is the learning process. Some of the greatest minds and the richest billionaires and so on have been through how many cycles of failure until they get it right. And that aversion is something that we need to probably look past. But again, it's something that we have to sort of ingrain in our system. Another thing I would say also challenging ease of doing business in Trinidad. I'm sure the chamber, hears that all the time. Ease of doing business, streamlining how things are done, both at the state sector and even the private sector. And we can hear if you think about it, how much business is lost, how much opportunities are lost when the ease of doing business can be streamlined and we can get things done. And on a regional level even, I can tell you this, we deal with SMEs and companies that export regionally and globally. Even on a regional level, a standardization of certification and standards. If that alone can be streamlined, then every time you go to a new island, you don't have to pay to do a test to meet a certain certification or labeling standard or packaging standard and so on. So again, ease of doing business, then a kind of synchronized coordinated way on a national level and on a regional level. And right away, that would unleash a lot of potential, because a lot of people who want to and think about it, they say, well, there's too many hurdles to jump through, too many things. Simple steps like that allow those ideas now to be unleashed, along with a culture that is learned early of taking risks, willing to innovate, willing to try, without the fear of failure.
Thank you. I like you brought up, I love the idea of the competition that you all have, and I think that's a good, starting point for the next question. We spoke in the lead up to this about not it being more of that talk shop, but really wanting to discuss those actionable steps. So from where you sit, what are some of those actionable steps that companies need to take, whether it's SMEs, etc., to really explore those innovative opportunities? Well, what would you suggest?
Right. Well, there's a number of our Center for Enterprise Development in Freeport, where we encourage entrepreneurship development and innovation. There's a number of services which we offer based on that same concept. One of them is the IGAP, Innovation Gap Analysis, looking at the company's process, procedures, products, and looking at ways that the innovative approach can allow them to streamline, to make it better. We can do that analysis, and then they can say, hey, this is something we can do better. We can think this through a little better, and so on. Another service we have is called the Idea Advisory Service, getting from idea to the market, from mind to market. And the Idea Advisory Service means you can come in with an idea, and based on that, we can examine what you have, as I said before, do a prototype of what your idea is, and then before you waste the energy, then before you go to prototype. And one of the other ways we also offer for food processing center, the same Center for Enterprise Development, for SMEs who do, we have a lot of small food processors for pepper sauces, jams, and ground provisions, and so on. We have a service where we have our industrial scale material, where SMEs and individuals can come in and they can test run what they want to do. Now, some of them are producing it in their kitchen, their family themselves, but to scale up now, it's a whole different ballgame. But they can come into our food processing center. We have industrial scale material where we can assist them to say, hey, this is what happens when you scale up, the change in the quantities, temperatures, packaging, and labeling, and the whole 9 yards. So before they invest in capital investment in industrial scale material, they can run it through with us and say, hey, this could work, this cannot work, and we can advise them. And then based on that, when they then invest in capital, if it's equipment for agro-processing, there's a greater chance of success and a lower chance of failure. And again, also, and finally, I know I don't want to come the stage, but we also have projects that we work with. I'm sure a lot of you are going to shape in the future of innovation, where along with EU and IB, we have give grant funding to SMEs and larger companies who come forward with their business processes, procedures, products, and so on, are meeting certain criteria. Once they meet certain criteria, they receive grant funding to develop those innovative ideas or products or procedures to allow them to scale it up. And I think I see one of the recipients in the room here, Rent a Tutor, yes, which is one of our success stories, who's a grant recipient, and I have to compliment her. I've seen her expand rapidly.
Thanks for
and I think she's doing well, and I really commend the fellow. We've seen a lot of success stories. So, but again, all these are things that are happening now, and we have success stories, but the wider ecosystem has to be developed to allow for that interaction to take place more easily. Ease of doing business, innovative policy, regulatory framework that allows that movement of ideas, processes, procedures, export, everything that makes the job easier, obviously will encourage more people to get involved. And it's a whole mindset that all of us have to be involved.
Ms. Guy, how do you all support, or how do you all encourage? You mentioned that mindset change. How do you all encourage the chamber members to explore those innovative opportunities?
Sure. So we have at the chamber roughly 11 standing committees, and one of our newest members is the Innovation Association. So what we have been working with the Innovation Association, specifically in terms of educating our members about what innovation is, because innovation seems like it's a buzzword now. And as I stated before, we are focusing on your business continuity, it's survival of your business. So we have embarked on an education campaign, which we will be launching in January of next year, whereby Emerson will go and meet with all of these committees. And what we have found is that various subsectors operate in a silo. So what we are encouraging is that people collaborate and we see a synergistic relationship emerging. So that's one of the tools that we are using, and more so in information sharing opportunities. And by what we are hoping to achieve there is to change our mindset in terms of encourage experimentation. There's a saying that how you fail fast and you learn faster. So this is the idea behind of all of these think tanks, knowledge sharing sessions, because a lot have been happening within the agro-processing sector, and Korea is part of some of these innovations as well. They are supporting it. But what Hans mentioned it's to build out that ecosystem. And what we saw with Prof's presentation in terms of the innovation diamond, we have been pushing forward for the development of centers of excellence. And let's start with the core area that we are known for globally, energy services. We would like to we have prioritized 3 centers of excellence for innovation, and one of those being the oil and gas sector.
Thank you. Professor Copeland, anything to add? What would be your advice to business owners? Yeah, you can.
First of all, let me say I'm very pleased with what I'm hearing. After that in the past, we wasn't recreated for this, so why was it happening? So I'm glad to hear that there's been motion. I was there when the center in Freeport was created. I remember one Professor Julian used to say he was so disappointed, he'd drive by 7 o'clock at night and all the lights were off at Curry. So I'm glad to know that things are happening there.
But the lights are on.
So, no, I'm very pleased with this. I took a note here, so it wasn't this is the Innovation Association. I'll have a look at it. So we head down in the lab, so I'm not being paying too much attention, just focus on getting stuff out. But I think that what you said with respect to developing, first of all, that culture and the ecosystem, I'm glad to hear that there's a center of excellence now that is being selected. I was going to ask that. But it's right along the line of what we've been discussing. The Kings will be too happy with it because they believe in doing a lot of exercise on foresight to pick the winners. I've always felt that we kind of know what those are. We just have to make sure that that is correct. And at the same time, I love for and even the upset when I say this serendipity, because sometimes we get an idea at 3:15 in the morning. And it's a brilliant idea. If you go to sleep, it's going to be lost. So you have to cater for that little bit, a small 5 to 10% for it. But I'm glad to hear we are, I suppose what I said earlier, we are on the way. It's late, but I'm really happy to hear that there's a little bit more motion than I thought that there was. So, I can retire now.
All right, thank you. So I'm a firm believer that innovative organizations need innovative leaders. So what does innovative leadership look like for you in your career? Professor Copeland, you could start.
Well, to me, that leader has to be able and willing, very carefully, yes, but maybe not proportionately willing and break from the past. I think the past is holding us back too much. And of course, driven by the intent of, you said the word survival, that is the be-all and end-all of it. After that, you can grow and thrive. So the end result must be that your people survive and then thrive once the situation is right. If bad befalls you, hurricane hits you, the whole island has to be cleared, those who survive have to be able to pick up, continue to survive, right, and then ultimately thrive again. Right, so that has to be in that person's mind. Right? So that's my thing.
I have to agree with Prof. And take it a little bit further. That leader, and I'm really happy that you asked this question, because when we think about innovation, we think it will just happen by chance. And it really takes a leader, a different type of leader to drive innovation. First and foremost, you need to inculcate a culture whereby your people are willing to experiment. They are not afraid to try something new, and there are not consequences if they fail. Very early in my career, my first boss was Dr. Botiwari, and he would give me, at 20 years I started working with him right after UWI, and he would tell me that I want you to write a speech for this minister, and I had absolutely no idea how to write a speech. But my idea was that I needed to go and jump on the in a maxi, and when I hear people talk, I would get ideas. But he never stopped me. That was my process, and we need more leaders like that to understand that people need to be creative, and that's their process. It's not a 9-to-5 job. Understand people's capabilities and what happens. To be innovative, you have to be creative. So you do not put people in a box. They have to think outside of that box.
There's no box.
Well, along the same trend, at the corporate or company level, certainly the environment should be encouraged for expressing ideas and willingness to come forward looking at things differently. Companies that innovate faster, quicker on the market survive, and that extends to economies and countries that innovate faster. Notice, not just innovate, but innovate quickly to market. So for instance, electric vehicles is the big hot thing, and now you see China innovating fast, and the veterans like Germany struggling to catch up. So, but it starts at the company level. The company, yes, it should have an environment where the managers, the employees, and so on allow their meetings to express ideas, to say, hey, new ways of doing things, because it's more than just a wonderful way of leadership, but it's a way of survival. Your company is responding to market conditions, and the market is not waiting on you. The faster you innovate, the faster you have the likelihood of success and of surviving. And economically, on a larger scale for countries, same thing applies. Innovation is happening all the time, probably now more than ever. And I think that, again, policies and procedures have to be in place that allows innovative ideas and things that come through to go through faster from mind to market, so that there's less hurdles towards the business development aspect of things and so on. So I think that overall, and probably even on a national scale, some kind of collaboration on public-private sector, maybe the secretariat body, along with the policy development, to sort of focus and drive on innovation and diversification in a more focused way, where you have the players in it. Now, meaning in Germany, as we talked about with the companies and their boards, there's union representation on the boards and so on. In a way, probably at a national scale, public-private sector, public body or secretariat, where there's representation from across the board, including all companies, public and private, where there could be some sort of taking the space and allowing us to push forward now to innovate, along with the policy and the regulatory framework that allows for that. And of course, within companies themselves, having that atmosphere of being able to think outside the box, being able to take chances, being able to fail. But of course, within reason, you have to do an assessment and analysis. That's why we do our IGAP analysis, or Idea Advisory Service, things like that. Those are tools to allow you to minimize the chance of failure, but at the same time, you should not be afraid of such failure. But you have to put tools in place that allows you then to move forward on a more firm footing, so it lessens your chance of failure, increases your chance of success. But even if you do, that the mechanisms are in place allow you to learn from that. So new structures are put in place, new procedures put in place that allows you now to next rounds you get it better. But it's something, innovation is ongoing, and the faster you innovate, the faster you adapt to market, the better your chances of survival. If you don't, you will not survive. It's as simple as that.
Thank you so much. All right, so ladies and gents, of our physical and virtual audience, I would like now to open up of the floor for any questions from our audience. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anderson John Charles, Chair of the National Innovation Committee with the Bureau of Standards. There are now ISO standards for innovation management. The ISO 56000 series helps firms continuously create new products and services that they can successfully bring to market. For Kariri, what plans do you have to train and get firms certified as ISO 56001? In that similar vein, with the universities, there are several large organizations that have recently created innovation departments. Phoenix Gas Processors, Agostini Group, Caribbean, and it seems like they struggle to find persons who are certified and skilled and knowledgeable in all the innovation best practices of the ISO 56000 series. What plans do the universities have to to fill that gap?
Well, Career has been assisting industry in innovating long before standards of 56,000. Career has been working with SMEs and businesses and all the real-world applications for innovating in their real-world problems dealing with market conditions, competition, and so on. So while these standards are good structures perhaps to emulate towards, it's not the be-all and end-all. It is part, just like ISO 9000, a company can have ISO 9001 quality standard, and they can still not survive. So so again, the 56,000 zone is just another part of that equation. And Career, of course, is always willing to learn and adapt. Just the same thing we preach, adaptation. 56,000 certainly will be part of that adaptation as we move forward. But right now, we are currently helping companies innovate. We are currently doing IGAP analysis to show them innovative applications. We are currently being the executing agency for shaping the future of innovation. And as I said, we have one example right here in the audience. So it's happening all the time because the real world conditions demand that. 56,000 is one of perhaps a good thing to have, a sort of a structured approach, if you will. But having 56,000 is not a be all and end all. The real world application is happening now as we speak. And so I think it's just one component of many components that take place in innovation in a real world way, and it's happening all the time. It's been happening for decades. So I'm glad to see that there's standards towards that end. But I think we should be mindful that it's not the be all and end all, that having that ISO 56,000 means that you're suddenly very innovative. I think you have to be careful about those things as well.
As if I have a brother from another mother. I've always said, and especially spoken in the past, but the right brothers through that play without a belt. Right? You gotta get everything flying, and then all those little standards and all these, I don't even come up necessary bureaucracy when you hit level flight. But right now we're taking off. And I kind of want to move like China in a sense, right? Yeah, okay, fine, I notice it. But another set of standards and guides and whatnot, there's just more bureaucracy, there's more people, it's going to make the cost production higher. Just do the thing. Wait it long enough, just do it. Yeah. So that's my take on it. Necessary, we can throw in some nice things in there, but I think we just need to get it going, and I'm glad to see that it's well done. So it is being very good.
Yes, I just want to add, yes, the standard is very good because it provides a framework, particularly in providing that framework. We could also look at the learnings from countries who have adopted it. Also, more importantly, is that if we were to, I like to work backwards. So what is our vision and mission as Trinidad and Tobago? What problems do we want to solve internationally? So that because Michael Porter says it's firms that compete, not countries. So from the private sector point of view, this is what we are trying to inculcate. There are opportunities for you to solve these problems, climate change. So it means that you are going to be, it's going to build sustainability of your firm going forward. So that is the approach that I will take, that I am encouraging amongst our membership.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Shivani Sinorai, I'm part of UE Global Campus Innovation Committee. And really, I'm really excited when I came here. The Innovation Cafe, so sounds so good. Good coffee too. So it's really good. What I just wanted to share, it's not really a question, more, that's probably a comment. I love what you all said. In order to be innovative, you really have to learn to fail. And that is really not our culture. Because our culture in work, people frightened. They're frightened, they're scared to fail because they'll say, oh, the boss man gonna tell them something or the boss lady gonna tell them something. We still have that type of thinking. So we really need to encourage that behavioral change mindset, which I love to hear so much people talking about that. And how do we do it? How do we get people to change mindset? I like to talk about it from a project management point, because I believe when people start doing in projects, you start to want to change. Now that's my way, right? Project management. I teach project management. I just have to put those, in it. That's what I do. But how the project management could really help us more in becoming more innovative is for us to look at the outcomes-based approach and not only outputs, which I know a lot of us may be thinking like that. Because when you get people to think, we want to become innovative, what's the real reason? What's the outcome? What do you hope to achieve? You get transformation. So I see good things to come, hopefully. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Really happy I rushed away from my desk, Dr. Nurse, to join you here. This is an excellent engagement. Really appreciated the presentations, much inspiration for some new thought there. There are three things I want to just quickly share. Where I am now, because I have tried to evolve decision making. In fact, I'm teaching people that the boss is not always the decision maker on things, and that helps address getting new ideas from all people. We have made this month November, K-N-O-W, November. In fact, this Friday, Dr. Mills, we have a closing ceremony. If your itinerary would permit, as we discussed, hope to see you. And so knowledge management and knowledge sharing seems to be part of the formula, perhaps, for helping us to develop that culture that embraces more as a culture and as a system. The whole idea of experimentation and testing. I have a long career in the military, so I know about testing and experimentation. Before something goes to field commercialization, there are many failures. The question is, do you think that we have not paid enough attention to knowledge management and knowledge sharing? Decision making in the public sector is failing because we are not engaged in, it's not as effective as it could be. Because I don't think we are sharing the knowledge we have and managing the knowledge we have. So I'd like to get your reflection on that. And then finally, for my last job, the diaspora for me seems to be a key addition to our capacity to grow the critical mass. I'd like to get your thoughts and reflections on that, please. Thanks.
Okay, still in the okay, I don't think there has been enough knowledge engagement, transfer sharing in the past. I think in a sense part of the reason is because of our background or cultural tradition, and I'm sure the socialists will go into that and say, yeah, this is all that kind of stuff, but the fact is we're not like that. I think it's changing now, but it still is very much there. A simple example is even at UE again. A lot of people don't know what UE has been doing for the last 70 years. Lots of research is being done. There are 300 research projects done by students every single year in engineering alone. 300. So there have been attempts, but it's been difficult. And it's difficult sometimes because Keith, academics, they give at least 14-letter words and so on to deal with in the communication, So I had to work with people and tell them, could you translate for John Public, if you're doing these things. So it's always an issue here, but the basic answers, I don't think enough has been done. In terms of the second part was, sorry.
Decision making, trying to evolve decision
Oh,
making.
yes.
And then the diaspora.
Let me deal with the diaspora first, because we looked at that market for the products that will come out as a market though, so it's small. We will tap it out in zero time to do it. We're really looking global for the product that we are producing. But they are very helpful. They have information. They're willing, okay, and just like the Canadian government is doing, it's a resource to be tapped, right? So they're going after Afro-Americans and so on, right? They tell them welcome home, 6 months, no visa, that kind of stuff. I don't know if you know that. So there's a diaspora there, UK, USA. That's your extended workforce in a sense. They may be your first takers for a product that comes out. But then they have friends and connections in those spaces. So absolutely, right, you leverage that. Decision making, I think, to be quite frank, a lot of it is political, unfortunately. And there's this 5-year cycle that affects us. And I don't blame any politician going in there because you have to survive too. And I've seen it happen on both sides of the equation. I've seen good people going, and all of a sudden the 5-year, I call it the black hole at the end of the 5-year period, comes in, and you start seeing all kind of different, sometimes illogical decisions being made, right? Especially my last month as chair.
Sorry.
but it's a fact, and I think we have to go beyond that, and it will happen when the publisher really and truly hold government and politicians, right, accountable. They're employed by them, but general public doesn't see it like that. Yeah. So it happened at uni as well. I've seen it happen, and that decisions are made for different reasons than the obvious and logical. It's when people get together, it's how societies work, it seems, right? Unfortunately, yeah. So we need to get over that because we're too small to be paying that sort of cost. The cost that comes around with those inefficiencies. Too small.
If I could just add to that, I spent the last 6 years of my life trying to build a cadre of services exporters. And there were, by my count, there were approximately 10 PSIP funded export capacity building programs in this country. Government has invested heavily in building a cadre of exporters. So we would run firms, persons over say a 6 to 9 month year. And after the program finished, that's it. There's not embedded into these programs coaches, mentors. And why I looked at other more effective export capacity building programs. Startup Chile is one of the most successful incubator programs. And what have they done? The last 2 decades, they have gotten the best and the brightest in IT because it's focused on ICT, and they brought them to Chile and immerse them and they encourage startups from across the globe, but you have to come and spend a year, 2 years in Chile. And they connect them to the best and the brightest business people who have successfully led an ICT business. So you get direct knowledge and you are immersed. You have a coach for that year, and we need more programs like that. It's not a one-off. We have seen where the best athletes in the world have coaches. So we need to take that learning from the sport industry and adapt it to other sectors.
Well, yes, I could agree with everything that's been said. I don't want to repeat what's been said. And that, I think, I mean, I've worked in academia myself, and I know they always say when you do research and present a paper, they ask you, okay, what now? Well, you're going to do some more research on that, and so on. Commercialization is one of the challenges I think a lot of academia generally has. I wouldn't just say it's UWI. And I suppose Curry is an entity probably that could be sort of a gap. I know we worked with UWI in the past. The Rubber Crumb project is one good example. For you all who don't know, that's where we have waste tires and we have a pilot plan that converts those waste tires into rubber crumbs, taking all the steel out of it, and that rubber crumb has been used in this case in a test case of a paving road, asphalt road in Tumakuna. And there's other uses for tires and sporting services and so on. So there's lots of avenues where research can be commercialized, but the structure and the mechanism has to be sort of there, that dynamic has to be there. And another thing I think we overlook sometimes is monitoring and evaluation. You know, we have programs, we do things, we set it out there, but then we don't have a sustained, well, I should say a complete monitoring and evaluation system that would say, hey, we've invested in this, how well has it done, what have we learned, what works, what doesn't work. I believe, well, currently the Ministry of Planning, I believe, is working on a system like that as well. So I think that it has to be a complete ecosystem of how you're doing it. Yes, getting knowledge to commercialization, applying ideas to real world scenarios as careers do it in competition with school children and so on. But then beyond that now, monitoring the success of it, near term, medium term, long term, and how well has it done, how well has it adapted, how well has it innovated. Ideas are not cast in stone enough on themselves. Once you have an idea out there, it's a good idea, other people will start nipping away at it. And then you have to say, well, okay, what's an innovative way now of this idea being further developed, being further created, and so on. So that whole, from knowledge to commercialization to monitoring and evaluation, that whole structure and ecosystem is something that we need to be mindful of. And as a professor, again, we're a small country. It shouldn't be that hard, really. But I think it's just that mindset to get it together in that kind of structured ecosystem and applying it. And that's why I say the public-private sector involvement and entities like Kabiri, which already have experience innovating and adapting ideas to real world, but within a broader ecosystem that makes it easier business, easier to do export in the region, CARICOM allowing standards to be standardized, allow ease of export and so on. It could only help. And again, making decisions based on sound data and good information, you can then say, hey, we're making information based on information we have, and monitoring and evaluation is part of that decision-making process over many years. You know? So again, it's a complete ecosystem approach.
Can I just say that we tend to pump academics, right? I mean, I could do it like crazy now, right? But I came to a realization late in my career that I used to be really upset because of the lack of support I got early on, right? And then I realized, wait a minute, there's really a kind of a spectrum of abilities that exist in the university. Try to work, and I'm looking again at the first world scenario. The academics who are just that, don't tell them anything, that is their forte. They will fail if they try to move up, derive a product from some new idea, they will fail even to move it forward. And I think one of the advantages in something more like culture is that they recognize that. And so they create the space for those, right? Well, the US calls them nerds, right? Okay, there's space for them. If you look at knowledge as similar to mining, right? Because there's a finite amount of knowledge. I mean, people will disagree with me. I could prove it if they want, right? But it's huge. And so they're mining. And that is their forte. But now you need somebody who can connect to them and look at what they've mined and see how you can apply it. And I think, especially in a space like like Caribbean, where you don't have the critical mass. That was my argument with you in the past. It needs to be sitting somewhere. The first place it should sit in a university. Later on, you could go into some other institution. But you need to have that skill set, or have a range of skill sets in your country. Those who will not do information, right? That's one bucket, some other countries. Those who are really good at winning that information, and I mean, they have piece of work on themselves, and studies have been done on them. There have been whole studies done on what was an academic, was there somebody in a corporate sector role, and so on, right? But you need, I call them the translators, who would now take that information and then make it useful either to the society in one way or the other, either for commercial work or societal development or whatever. So I'll stop this and that. It's just that now the universities now need to be aware of that. So when they're doing hiring, they need to know what is they hiring people for. And that ecosystem needs to develop so that these people who they hire could populate those spaces and be the most effective and efficient.
Thank you. Ladies and gents, round of applause for invite you all to take your seats back in the audience. We can wrap up. So thank you, everyone. I think today's discussion was engaging and enlightening, and it reinforces, especially to me, I've been at this college for many years, that when, as a college, we made the decision to start our bachelor's degree in management and entrepreneurship, which was, I think, 2010 or 2011, we were ahead of the ball when it comes to addressing the issue of entrepreneurship, and especially from our standpoint within our communities. So I would like to, point out that as some of the work that COSTAATT has been doing over the years to really push that entrepreneurship and that innovation agenda. So that being said, Dr. Nurse, I'd like to invite you, please. Yes. We have some tokens for our panelists.
Oh, I don't have to talk. Perfect.
No.
No, you don't really want me to talk. I can speak ad nauseum about these things. No, I just wanted to thank the panelists. I thought we were able to capture some of the critical issue areas. In fact, I was going to ask a question about what role for tertiary learning institutions, but the chair of COSTAATT, Professor Copeland, was able to, I think, really cinch that in his last comments. One of the things I think that we are not terribly mindful of is the urgency with which we need to proceed. I just thank you very much. I just completed a paper it's an encyclopedia on development, looking at Latin America and the Caribbean, and I did the chapter for the Caribbean, English-speaking Caribbean. And 20 years ago, based on the Human Development Index, there were only 2 Caribbean countries that would be below the world average. By 2020, there are 5 Caribbean countries below the world average. And all the projections are that several more Caribbean countries will fall below the world average. And I don't think that there is a clear sense of urgency across the region about these matters. And Professor Copeland highlighted the success of Jamaica recently. You could see it also, the performance in the innovation is reflected also in their reduction in their debt and their improved fiscal management. So innovation is not just for competitiveness, it actually links into other areas of the wider society in terms of generating benefits for the whole of society. So I really want to thank the panelists for embracing the opportunity to come and participate at our Innovation Cafe. This is the 3rd. The first was on recidivism and the criminal justice system. Of course, we know that's a critical issue. The second one was on the circular economy, and this one now on innovation. We are working on we're not doing any in December. We do this every month. So we're gonna resume in January. Huh?
29.
Oh, we have a date already. Okay. January 29th. So looking forward to having you participate again, and thank you very much.
Professor Copeland, you join us.
No, we need
Yeah.
to do a proper photo op, so you need to come.
Yes, to the right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Liz.
Oh, I'm done.
Dr. Millett, would you join us, please? I'd like to invite Guyadine.
The logo has to be on the other side.
This way a little bit also. Thank you.
Last but not least, Mr. Schultz. Dean Clorinda Jack, can you join us up front, please? Thank you. All right, thank you so much. So everyone, that brings us to the end of our Innovation Cafe on innovation, entrepreneurship, and competitiveness. I would like to thank Dr. Keith Mills, our president, for his attendance today, the members of our panel, Professor Copeland, Mr. Schultz, Vashti Guyadine for attending here today and really helping expand this discussion when it comes to innovation. Our COSTAATT partners in attendance, thank you for coming out today. Our COSTAATT organizing team, members of our marketing, institutional advancement, facilities, IT, we welcome and we thank you all for making this event the success that it has been. Members of the media, thank you for attending today, and all our attendees, both physical and virtual. As mentioned, the next Innovation Cafe is going to be on January 29th, and I'm also going to take this opportunity to make a special plug for the School of Business and Digital Technologies Entrepreneurship and Innovation Week, which will also be held next semester. It's a great opportunity for members of the public to come out and see what our entrepreneurship students, and not even just our entrepreneurship students, all students in our business and IT programs, what they've achieved during their studies here. So if you are not following us on social media, please do so, and we hope to see you soon at our other events. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Country today, but
I